Welcome to Salute Your Sports Week 44. I'm Kamen Enchev with Drew Brackett, Tom Castleman. Guys, we've got a big show today. I'll have a big statement of the week on my favorite athlete of all time. That's near the end of the show, just like our betting locks of the week. We're going to talk plenty about the Olympics as well and much, much more.
Yeah, we're going to be talking some basketball as well. And Drew, you talked about it last week being the last week with no football. Football's back, and it is exciting. We're going to be talking a little bit of past and a little bit of future on the show today.
Yeah, definitely. We'll start out with the preseason going on this week. Common, what do you think about some interesting quarterback competitions?
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting competitions involving rookies this season. So I'm going to start off with the big one that Tom and I like to talk about as Bears fans. It's rookie quarterback, first-round draft pick Justin Fields, and NFL veteran Andy Dalton. I know the Bears are trying to say there's not a QB competition, but who are we kidding? We know there is. Reports out of camp that Fields is playing really well. Reports are also that Dalton is playing pretty good. So either way, it looks like things are going good for the Bears. But of course, training camp means next to nothing. Once you get on the field, it's a different scenario. For me, this is an interesting situation because Fields is the more athletic quarterback. He's got the higher ceiling. He's got the bigger arm. Dalton is, been a solid NFL quarterback for a long time, but certainly nothing spectacular by any means. His teams haven't had a lot of success or really any success come the playoffs. So I think the Bears are going to be stubborn about this. I think they're going to start Andy Dalton week one, but I think he's got a very short leash. One thing to keep in mind, first-year system for both of them new players on this team. So Dalton may not have as much of an advantage as you might think. And then a couple other rookie battles that I want to hit on before I go to you guys. Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance with the San Francisco 49ers is an interesting one. Lance supposedly playing really, really good in practice. He's the number 3 overall pick out of North Dakota State, Division I AA FCS. He didn't lose a single game in college. I think he was 19-0 in his career, but the one full season as a starting quarterback where he went 16-0, he had over 200 pass yards in only 12 out of his 16 starts. So I question, can he pass the ball at the NFL level? Obviously, he can run. He's got a good arm. It's just about developing his skills. I feel pretty safe in saying that Jimmy Garoppolo is the better quarterback right now. I actually think Jimmy Garoppolo might be the better quarterback for their careers if he stays healthy. I mean, this is a guy who's 24-8 as an NFL starter, and he's got 51 touchdowns and 26 interceptions, so about 2-to-1 touchdown to INT ratio. He had the 49ers in the Super Bowl just 2 years ago when he was healthy. So that's a big question mark. I think Jimmy G starts, but I'm not sure that he stays healthy. So if, chances are Lance will play simply because Garoppolo gets hurt. And then the other rookie QB battle is Mac Jones and Cam Newton in New England. This is a very interesting situation that these two guys had very different seasons last season. You look at Jones in college, had a great season, but he had incredible targets. Newton, on the other hand, had a really bad season, but he didn't have anybody to throw to. In the offseason, the Patriots have gotten receivers and tight ends. They're pretty solid at that position right now, certainly much better than they were. Reports are that Newton looks better in camp, which isn't necessarily surprising. I think Newton's going to win this job. I know he's past his prime, but let's not forget that this is a number 1 overall pick guy, a Heisman Trophy winner, an MVP in this league. He played in the Super Bowl. So I know he's had injuries, but I think once he gets a few good targets in New England, I think he's going to have a bounce back year. Mac Jones might eventually see the field, but I think Newton is the starter there. What QB battles interest you guys? What do you think about the rookie ones I mentioned? Because I've got a few others, but I'll let you guys talk a little bit before I talk forever.
Yeah, no, I think it's kind of interesting how you brought up 3 different quarterback situations in which there are rookies who are really talented and maybe pretty well poised to play. And we have 3 different mindsets on how coaching staffs want to use them. I can say with pretty much, 100% certainty that Andy Dalton is going to win the job in Chicago because the coaching staff wants him to win the job in Chicago. That's something that we need to kind of keep in mind, especially when talking about quarterback battles, the coaching staff always has a thumb on a scale for the guy that they want to roll out there. So Matt Nagy comes from that Kansas City, a team where Patrick Mahomes sat behind Alex Smith for pretty much an entire season, played the last week of his rookie year. Granted, different veteran situation, but Matt Nagy is going to use that to inform his decision going forward. Out in San Fran with Shanahan, he really wants to run a power run game offense. And Trey Lance, in addition to throwing the ball, is also very athletic and was used as a runner a little bit in college as well. The other thing to kind of keep in mind is that he already sat out a season with COVID. Are the 49ers really going to sit their rookie that they drafted third overall, trading significant assets up to get him, by the way? Are they going to sit him for basically redshirting him for 2 years, one in college because of COVID, one as a professional player? That might be something where it's like, if you don't use it, you might lose it. They might want to get him working in a lot earlier. And then Bill Belichick, who knows what he's thinking and what he wants. I think he might be, of the coaches in question here, the most fair, the most impartial in assessing Cam Newton, Mac Jones, who's going to give him the best chance on any given Sunday.
Yeah, and he's been known to go with young guys early in their careers, I guess maybe after injury, but that worked out for him pretty good about 20 years ago now. Drew, what do you think about these rookie quarterback jobs, and who do you think should win? Who's going to win? I mean, what are your thoughts on the rookies?
Yeah, I like the 49ers matchup or the competition. That's good. I'm sure Jimmy G will edge Lance in that one. You got to probably go with Cam Newton if he's healthy. I mean, he's a former, I don't know, I think he won an MVP, but Newton, is good. So you could go with him. I look at the Saints competition, if that's still a thing. Winston, Taysom Hill. I mean, they're a good team. Who's going to replace Drew Brees? I really like that competition.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful competition. I think it's very intriguing because we've seen Jameis Winston. If you talk about like ups and downs and roller coasters, there is no one who I can think of that has more than that than Jameis Winston. I mean, he's thrown a lot of touchdown passes. He's led the NFL in passing yards, also led the NFL in interceptions. That came in the same season, by the way. So truly a lot of ups and downs. Taysom Hill is a guy who has sort of been a receiver, a running back, a tight end, a fullback, a quarterback, a special teams guy. I mean, he's done a little bit of everything. He did get his chance last season to start for New Orleans, and he did pretty good. He was 3-1. But you look at those games, he completed more than 70% of his passes in 3 of those games, but most of them were short throws. 233 pass yards, 78, 232, 291. Those numbers don't exactly jump out at you in a passing heavy league. 4 touchdowns and 2 interceptions for him. I think obviously Hill is the better runner. I think Hill probably is the better game manager, won't turn the ball over as much. Jameis Winston, though, without question, hands down, is the better NFL-ready quarterback. He can make more throws down the field, over the middle. I do think for almost every team in the NFL, Jameis Winston would be my starter. I will say this, in the Saints offense, which is primarily a short passing game, Taysom Hill actually works pretty good in their offense with a good running back, an offense that throws a lot of running back screens. So for that offense, I don't know who should start. What I think is that they should sort of play both of them just to confuse defenses, sort of do like a 50-50 system. And that's actually what I think Sean Payton will do. I think we already saw Hill getting in once in a while when Brees was the quarterback. I think this season, Winston gets announced as the starter. But I think ultimately he's going to be getting about 50% of those snaps. I expect them to go back and forth between those two.
Yeah, it's going to be really intriguing to see what happens in New Orleans, because a little bit of me kind of feels like with Drew Brees gone, with the Saints cap situation the way it is, Sean Payton already has a Super Bowl ring. I think at this point, like, is it fair to say he could be bored potentially? He's kind of labeled as this offensive mastermind type of guy. Is he going to go out there and basically just say like, well, nobody's ever really done this super successfully at the professional level before. I don't have a quarterback on my roster, so I'm just going to go out and I'm going to find different ways to create offense. Keep in mind, Michael Thomas, I guess there's a lot of drama going on down in NOLA between him and the Saints. He waited until later in the offseason to have surgery done on I forget which part of the body, but he had surgery done, and Sean Payton flat out said that this could have been done earlier in the offseason. Now Michael Thomas is going to be missing a significant portion of the year. Who are the other receivers that the Saints have? That's been an area of depth that they haven't really been able to generate a lot of talent in. So it's going to be intriguing just to see, does he kind of just look at this year as, I'm just going to play mad scientist. If it works, everybody's going to hail me as a genius. If it doesn't, let's look at the offense. You have Alvin Kamara, and who else is really a consistent contributor on that team? And then to touch on, Drew, one of your hometown teams, Denver has a QB controversy. Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater, a couple of guys who I don't think are, solid rock stars, but kind of fall into that line of like they're like in the bottom 5 or so of starting QBs and in the top 5 or so of backups in terms of that kind of nebulous area where they could go either way. What are your thoughts on them?
Well, I'll always root for Drew Lock, so we'll see if he can win that competition. But they're different styles, right? Bridgewater, able to run the football more than Drew Lock. So it's going to depend on what the coaching staff wants to do there.
Yeah, I don't know necessarily that Teddy is as much of a runner, especially these days. I actually might think
he's older now.
He's 28. I think Lock might actually be more athletic. He's actually a pretty good runner himself. I'll tell you this: I covered Drew Lock's games in college. A super nice guy. I've interviewed him dozens of times, so I'm definitely cheering for him, as well as a former Mizzou grad, a former Mizzou TV reporter for sports. I think this is the most interesting quarterback competition. By the way, Tom, I actually think Teddy Bridgewater might be a little bit better than bottom top 5 starting quarterbacks. I'm not going to go as far as average, but I would label him as mediocre. I think there's probably about 10 starters in the NFL he's better than. Right now, I think given his track record, he's had a more successful career than Drew Lock, but they're very different quarterbacks in the sense that Teddy's more of a traditional game manager. Drew Lock is more of a gunslinger. Drew Lock has only played 2 seasons. So sometimes the third year is the one that you really take off. It's also going to be his second year in a new offense. So he was injured his first year, barely played. Second year, they introduced a new offense. This is going to be his third year and second year in this offense. So I think Drew Lock has a higher ceiling. I think Drew Lock has potential to be an average NFL starting quarterback, if not better. I'm not saying he's going to get there, but just based on his arm talent and what he can do, he definitely has a higher ceiling than Teddy Bridgewater. And I think this is sort of like his year, prove it or lose it. So I think Lock is probably going to win that competition. I do think that this is an interesting one in the case that he was a second round pick. It's not like they invested all in on Drew Lock. And Teddy Bridgewater is a veteran, but he's also 28 years old. Teddy Bridgewater could have at least, 8 years in his prime in this league. So Denver could go with either guy. I'm not actually convinced that either one is going to be Denver's starting quarterback 3 to 4 years from now. But I think Drew Lock wins it just based on ceiling. But if he struggles a little bit, I think Bridgewater takes that job back and doesn't look back and is the starter the rest of the season.
Absolutely. Denver's a team where, you have Vic Fangio, the famed vaunted defensive coordinator, now head coach, hasn't had a whole lot of success in Denver. So he's not necessarily on the hot seat, but definitely looking to turn a corner as he's in, I believe, his third year as head coach. Kind of like the conventional wisdom that I've heard from different scouts, just like as I read things, is you need about 45 professional games to kind of know. Hang on, it might be 25. I should probably think about that.
Lock's not there. He hasn't even played 25 either.
That's the larger overarching point that I have, is that Drew Lock has not reached that point. So like you said, Common, this third year is pivotal for him in determining, is he going to potentially be into that, bottom, between like that 15 to 25 range? Is he going to stay there as a quarterback? Is he potentially going to be able to ascend a little bit? That's something where we still need to learn a little bit more about him. He certainly has plenty of weapons now, perhaps more than he has at any point in Denver with his tight end. Hopefully a step forward in his second year. They've added some other weapons at receiver for him. So we'll see. It's going to be really interesting out in Denver. I also think it's going to be Mizzou grad and Drew's locks, winning the quarterback competition in Denver.
Right.
But yeah, I don't think Teddy Bridgewater is going to be far off the pace.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you this: Jerry Jeudy has the potential to be a great NFL receiver if they can get Drew Lock figured out. Those two guys can be a tandem for years to come. I did want to ask you one thing real quickly, Tom, just about the Bears one, because we talked about this. I know we talked about it earlier in the show, but who do you think should be the starter? I think we both agree that Dalton is going to be the starter because the Bears want him to be. I also think, though, that Fields will get more starts the whole season. But who would you start week one?
I would go with Justin Fields week one. We're in this kind of weird year where we're adding a 17th game to the NFL schedule. And the Bears have a pretty tough schedule. And looking at kind of, where can you kind of put Justin Fields in midseason, there's no really good place to do that. That makes it kind of convenient. So really the best opportunity for him to kind of take over the starting job with a smooth transition, with a full game plan, with plenty of reps, is actually at the beginning of the year. The one thing that does give me pause, especially early on in the preseason, the Bears' offensive line is pretty decimated with injuries. I wouldn't feel super good about putting a rookie quarterback out there, having him try to process while he has very limited protection in front of him. So macro, I would say Justin Fields. Given the particular micros, I will say Andy Dalton. It's one of those situational things. I think Dalton should start just because reps are limited with the offensive line, and I don't know how good of an education Fields is getting, despite his prodigious talent.
Tom is getting all macro and micro on us. It's like economics. I'm sure he did much better in college than Drew and I did in economics. I don't want to like
very likely
throw you to the wolves, Drew. But both Drew and I struggled mightily in economics, Mr. Castleman. But I'll tell you this: as far as what you said, I would actually flip that the other way because I don't really think that you can play afraid of injuries. I mean, I think that Fields might be the better option for that exact reason because the Bears' offensive line is bad and he's the better runner. He's the more mobile quarterback. He can create plays that Andy Dalton can't, and that's what we saw last season. As much as Trubisky struggled, a lot of Bears fans, including myself, wanted Trubisky out, but in came Nick Foles, who couldn't move. Well, he looked even worse with that offensive line. And you take a look at Andy Dalton, he actually was a pretty good quarterback for most of his career in Cincinnati. The Cowboys had pretty good receivers. I would have expected more from Andy Dalton this past season, but why did he struggle? Because he played on a team with a poor offensive line. So I think with this Bears offense, Fields is a better fit and perhaps gives them a better chance to win right away. And I think for sure, if not like week one, by week 2 or 3, he should be the best. And I think we live in this world now where it's not 1980. I mean, you pay your quarterback a lot of money, you let him play, and the more you can get out of him, the better. I know you're going to talk about the Patrick Mahomes situation, but that was a little bit different. Alex Smith was a proven veteran, and they didn't want to kick him out right away. He had a lot of success with that team. Andy Dalton hasn't had the same type of success. I know we give a lot of credit Patrick Mahomes learning from Alex Smith. I'm not saying he didn't take a few things away, but I actually think Patrick Mahomes would have done a lot of what he did the first year regardless. That's how good he is. And at the time, that's how bad the Chiefs defense was, that they needed him to make a lot of plays. So I'm a firm believer in if you're going to draft a rookie guy, you start him now. And if he's going to be the future of your franchise, might as well get as much of him out of him as you can, unless we're talking about like a truly great player, maybe at the very end of his career. But Andy Dalton's a good player, but certainly not a great player. And I think Fields is the most talented of all these young quarterbacks. The reason why I'm not on the Trey Lance train as much is because you said it. We haven't seen Trey Lance play in basically an year, and he played at the FCS. There's a lot of question marks about him playing at that level. I'm not saying that he can't succeed, but it's a different level. I have seen Justin Fields succeed, so I feel good about him. I don't know, Drew. What do you think about starting rookies week one, and what do you think about this Bears competition? Because you're not a Bears guy, but a lot of your best friends are Bears fans. Tom and I, and your two roommates in college, you're kind of surrounded by Bears fans.
I am, yeah. I think you go with the veteran over the rookie just so the rookie can learn, because it's a big step from college to the NFL. You're much bigger guys and guys who have higher NFL IQs. I mean, they're professional. They're getting paid to do this. So you got to go with that. And as far as the Bears, you trial run Dalton, and then once Fields is ready, if it's week 3, it's week 3. If it's week 10, week 10.
Okay. So let's just do a real quick rundown before we move on here. The 5 positions, because the 5 quarterback battles we talked about, I think we're sort of on the same page that the veterans are going to win all of them. I think we all think that Drew Lock is going to win. And I think the Winston one, I don't know what we decided, but in terms of who do we think should start, I'll give you mine. I've got the starter for the Patriots. I think it should be Cam Newton. For the 49ers, Jimmy Garoppolo. For the Bears, Justin Fields. For the Saints, I say co-starters. And then for what's the other one? I'm missing the other rookie competition.
Drew Lock.
Drew Lock, not a rookie competition. Yeah, Drew Lock should start because he has a higher ceiling. If he doesn't work out midway through the season, you go with Teddy.
That sounds about right to me.
Yeah, I agree, except the Fields one.
Okay. So Justin Fields, by the way, I should have worn my Justin Fields shirt. I got a Justin Fields shirt at a Cubs game I went to back before the mass exodus, where I had gotten it for like $10. I should wear the Justin Fields shirt. And if Justin Fields ends up shining, I'm just going to give Drew Brackett a lot of flack on this show. How does that sound, guys?
Love it.
Sounds pretty par for the course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it sure does. It sure does.
I'll move on to the Hall of Fame enshrinement. That was this weekend. Peyton Manning, Calvin Johnson, headline of the class. Guys, where do you think they rank among the all-time greats in their position?
Absolutely. Just to give a quick lowdown on all the other guys that made it. Alan Faneca, Tom Flores, John Lynch, Bill Nunn, Drew Pearson, and, of course, Charles Woodson, who was very successful in college and the NFL. I think, you guys know kind of where I stand on this for the quarterback. I'm sort of undecided as to who the best quarterback ever is. I think Patrick Mahomes is going to be the best ever. I think he's the most talented. Aaron Rodgers is right up there. But for the sake of this argument, I'm going to exclude those guys because they haven't played a full career. And I'm not even sure that Aaron Rodgers will play a full career. We'll see about that. Well, I guess he sort of has already, but you know what I mean. But as far as the top 4 guys, I think Peyton Manning is for sure in the top 5 all time. I think we can all agree. In terms of whether he's 1 or 4, I think it's pretty close to me. I think Manning has probably the best regular season numbers, except for possibly Drew Brees might be slightly ahead of him. And I think, Brady has the playoff pedigree. But I'd argue with you that a lot of it is your team and your fit, because Tom Brady's played on some amazing defenses. He's played on some amazing teams. His first Super Bowl run, he only had 1 touchdown pass the entire playoffs, under 200 yards a game. His most recent Super Bowl run, he had 3 interceptions in the AFC Championship game. One of his Super Bowl runs in 2018, 2 touchdowns and 3 picks. So, for basically almost half of Brady's Super Bowls, they've won with him struggling in some aspects. Whereas I look at Peyton Manning, I think part of his playoff numbers speaks to that he hasn't played on a team that's as good, and he's had to play. He's had to throw the ball. They haven't had the running game. I know that sounds like excuses, but think about this. He went up against the greatest Patriots defense and the greatest Seahawks defense. So don't forget about that. And he still has 2 Super Bowls. So it's not like he hasn't won in the playoffs. So, those 2 are close. You might get the slight edge to Tom Brady. But Manning was more of a coach on the field than Brady was. He sort of did everything. He wasn't blessed with Belichick all those years, and he didn't have Sean Payton, who Drew Brees is the other guy who I really like. By the way, Drew Brees has a better career playoff passer rating in the playoffs and the regular season than Manning and Brady. He has more career passing yards per game over everyone except for Andrew Luck, who had a short career. And a lot of times we talk about Drew Brees getting yards because he passes a lot in that pass-heavy system. But if you take a look at like pass yards per attempt, Manning is 7.7, Breeze is 7.6, Brady is 7.5. Joe Montana, the other guy I like, is 7.5. Montana, of course, 4 for 4 in Super Bowls, a guy who took care of the ball, threw for a lot of pass yards. But even Montana, I compare him to Steve Young. Like, yes, he won more rings because he played against Cowboys teams that weren't as good as the 90s Cowboys. But Steve Young put up similar numbers as Joe Montana. So for me, the top 4 are Brady, who, by the way, was at Manning's Hall of Fame announcement. Brady, Manning, Breeze, and Montana. I don't think there's much of a gap between any of the 4. I'm okay with someone saying Tom Brady gets the tiebreaker, but I don't think that Tom Brady is so far ahead of the rest of these guys because numbers-wise, if anything, he's slightly behind Manning and Breeze, and they played in the same era. I'll say this about Peyton Manning also: the most game-winning drives in the regular season in playoff history, and still 2 Super Bowl titles is not bad.
Absolutely. And, just to speak really quickly on those clutch Super Bowl numbers by Peyton Manning: 3 career touchdown passes in Super Bowls to 5 interceptions, threw more than 300 yards just one time. But he definitely took his teams all the way without any help from any defense whatsoever or any other talented players around him.
Well, and that's the point, though. The year that he won with Denver, it was his worst year ever, and they won anyways. So that's my
you
point.
Can't knock Tom Brady for having good teammates and putting up similar numbers in the Super. That's all I'm saying. I'm just pointing that out. No, I mean Peyton Manning is obviously easily top 5. I mean for this Hall of Fame conversation we're going to have, I'm going to keep it to modern era because especially with wide receivers, which we'll be touching on in just a little bit, it's pretty difficult to go across eras. This isn't like baseball where you can more or less be able to compare people from different decades from then to now. I mean, if you look at players like, Bart Starr, Johnny Unitas, guys that I read about in books growing up, I mean, gosh, how can you even compare those types of numbers? I mean, when you look at Sid Luckman, his numbers compare favorably to modern day Bears quarterbacks at the very least, which is saying something not too good. But it's like, how can we really compare them? So really, I'm keeping it from like Marino to present day, kind of like Dan Fouts Marino era to present day. I mean, Peyton Manning's probably second greatest quarterback of all time. I do make a little bit of a distinction between greatest and most talented, because I think if you look at arm talent, if you look at just overall abilities, I would say, regardless of how far along in their careers they are, Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers are 2 of the most talented quarterbacks of all time, if not just flat out the 2 most talented of all time.
Fair.
So that's definitely a key distinction to make. So yeah, I think, Manning, as you listed out, he's right at the top all time, definitely top 5 regardless of era. I would say he's probably second best of the modern era, basically from like mid 90s until now. I mean, Joe Montana, Dan Marino, John Elway, Brett Favre, also very talented quarterbacks. Drew Brees, a contemporary, of course. They're all up there. But I think, just in terms of the control, the mastery that Manning has of the game, like he and Brady are basically 1 and 1A in terms of what they're able to do at a line of scrimmage and what they're able to do with less than their best stuff as they've gone on in their careers and have won Super Bowls in the twilight years.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's tough to decide on a ranking on Peyton Manning in the quarterback position, but he's definitely easily top 5 quarterbacks all time in the NFL. And as far as other positions, Calvin Johnson. I mean, shoot, had he played longer, he would have had much better numbers. But he was a stud when he was in the NFL.
Yeah, I think Calvin Johnson, to me, is the most talented receiver in the history of football. I think, like you said, I think he's the best receiver to ever put on the uniform. And, it shows because if you look at some of the other greats, Jerry Rice, Terrell Owens, Randy Moss, Larry Fitzgerald, Torrey Holt, Isaac Bruce, he's faster and stronger, more athletic than all of them, except for maybe Randy Moss might be faster, can also jump like him. But Calvin Johnson is basically Randy Moss, but bigger and stronger. And, I would argue he doesn't take a play off as much as Randy Moss does. But I actually think Calvin Johnson is the most talented receiver of all time. I think his stats speak for himself. Only Julio Jones has more career receiving yards per game than Calvin Johnson. And that's because Julio Jones is still young. I think by the time Julio Jones gets done, chances are Calvin Johnson will have more receiving yards per game by the time Julio retires. I do think, though, if we're looking about longevity of career, I'll say this. I got to put him just outside the top 5 because, he's 23rd in receiving touchdowns and 32nd in receiving yards. So, I mean, you've got Jerry Rice's first all time in both. You can't argue against Jerry Rice being the greatest receiver. But I think if we're taking one receiver for one season, I would take Calvin Johnson over any of those guys. And it's crazy because his career mirrors Barry Sanders's. I mean, Sanders was a little higher in the all-time rankings, but it's a very similar scenario where you have a Lions player who is one of the best, if not the best ever at their position, but they play on such a bad team that they never succeed in the playoffs. They rarely make it, and when they do, they're one and done. It shows you how sad all the sadness that organization has gone through because they could have certainly won with those guys if they had more pieces around them. But I'll say this, that a lot of it is fit. And same thing is, just to say one last thing about that other discussion, imagine if Peyton Manning played on with Bill Belichick and on those Patriots defenses. I mean, do you think Peyton Manning would have 7 Super Bowls if he had had the same trajectory as Brady? I know it's hard to compare, but I certainly think so. And Tom, you talked about Manning's lackluster Super Bowl stats. Well, first off, one of them he played in the freezing cold rain against the Bears defense, which is, again, he played the Bears defense and the Seahawks defense, which you can make a case for those being the 2 greatest defenses of all time. I mean, maybe the 85 Bears, 2000 Ravens, but for sure 2 of the top 5 defenses ever, the 2 best defenses that any of these quarterbacks have faced. So that's it. I mean, part of the statistics are who do you play against? Because Tom Brady hasn't delivered against some of the good defenses in his playoff career either. He's 15th all time in passer rating. So let's not act like Brady doesn't have bad games. If the Chiefs don't jump offside in 2018, and he throws that interception, they lose the game. If there isn't the tuck rule in 2001, they lose that game. If there isn't, a bad call in the NFC title game this year, they lose that game. I mean, he's a couple breaks and bounces away from having 3 or 4 Super Bowls instead of 7. But I'll tell you this, though, Calvin Johnson is a phenomenon. He is a beast. He is Megatron. And the only thing that I could say is I'm sad that he didn't play longer, but I completely understand it from his perspective.
Yeah, keeping the same framing with the modern era type of thing. I agree with you. Calvin Johnson, probably the most talented wide receiver of all time, and actually, as far as his contemporaries go, not that much of an anomaly. If you look at kind of like a modern era top 5, top 10 type of thing, he's right up there with Jerry Rice, Randy Moss, Terrell Owens, Larry Fitzgerald, I think, Julio Jones. What do almost all these guys have in common? Jerry Rice is the only one who's actually won Super Bowl rings. It's kind of fascinating that we have so many great wide receivers in NFL history, and some of the very, very best ones have not actually gone and attained that or that team success the same way that they have the individual accolades. I'm not sure, what, if anything, that says. I'm not necessarily thinking that it's causation over correlation. I just think that it's a strong trend line and there's nothing really else to it. But yeah, absolutely a top 10 receiver all time, I think is fairly fair to say, and definitely top 5 of the modern era.
I'll add one more thing to that. I mean, Jerry Rice played on some amazing 49ers teams. I think Deion Sanders was his teammate for a little bit. Some great defenses, great running backs, great coaches. I mean, I would say it's more of a coincidence per se. And again, it's different. I mean, obviously you're talking about the modern day guys, but you look at some of the all-time great receivers, a guy like Lynn Swann, he won a lot of Super Bowls. So I know you're not necessarily sort of making a causation, but I would just like to say, like, don't hate on the receivers. Isaac Bruce, Torrey Holt, winning with the greatest show on turf. Marvin Harrison won with the Colts. So again, you can spin it whichever way you want. Just to say though, there is some all-time great receivers who have won the Super Bowl for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely.
What about Charles
Anything?
Woodson? I didn't put that on there, but Charles Woodson, again, a phenomenal career. He did it in college and the NFL. He had a heck of a career. I think he was like fifth all time in interceptions or something. I saw. He another guy. If you look at the impact of college and the NFL, he was the last sort of two-way player to win a Heisman. He did a lot of different things in college, and he was very successful in the NFL as well. And John Lynch, one of the toughest guys in the NFL. What I love about the Hall of Fame these days in all these sports is that we see a lot of guys now that we grew up watching. 10 years ago, it was guys that maybe we'd seen video, we'd read about, maybe seen a few classic games, but for the most part, we weren't really familiar with seeing them on the field. Now, these are guys that I grew up watching, and I love seeing it. And Peyton Manning, for me, was one of the first truly great athletes that I loved. Like, I was a huge Peyton Manning fan. He is still one of my all-time favorite athletes. I mean, behind Patrick Mahomes, he is probably my second favorite quarterback of all time, probably my second favorite football player of all time. So, great speech by him, by the way. Really cool to see his speech. So I love this joke about Tom Brady saying how by the time he's eligible, he'll have to do an Instagram video. So really cool to see these legends get the love they deserve, and cool to see these guys that I grew up watching, that we all grew up watching.
No, it just makes me feel old.
Ah,
Yeah, you're feeling old, Tom?
I don't like it.
Are you 30 yet? You're the youngest on this show yet.
Soon to be. Yeah, a couple of
Soon to be.
weeks. About a month.
About a month. By the way, Tom's wife's birthday was this weekend. I hope you guys spent it well. I just learned, and maybe I knew this before and forgot, but she's a fellow Leo like myself. So shout out to
Indeed.
the Leos of the zodiac sign.
of course, gotta go with the Leos.
Drew doesn't follow the zodiac at all.
No, I'll let you bring that to the table. But we'll move to someone else who's a Leo. No, I'm kidding. Kevin Durant led the USA men's basketball team to a gold medal, as we thought, or as I thought. Of course, they would win gold. I know you guys were shaking in your boots, but Common, is he the best U.S. Olympic basketball player ever? 3 golds, most points ever.
Yeah. So first off, I will say this: Drew Brackett was very convinced the USA was going to win, much more so than Tom and I, much more so than a lot of the national analysts. I felt like a lot of people were saying it's 50-50. They might win the gold, but we're not sure. Drew was like, they're going to win the gold. So if you want
I could
conviction,
get 50-50 odds, that's a mortgage bet waiting to happen.
yeah. So I mean, Drew Brackett, if you want to hear basketball opinions about who's winning, at least in 2021, listen to Drew Brackett. He had the Bucks. He was sure on them. He was sure on USA basketball. So he's our basketball guru here on the show. Not as much on locks of the week, but if you just want straight up winners, he's the guy to go to. I'll tell you this. I was, first off, real quickly before I get to Durant, impressive performance by the USA. They got better as the tournament went along. Their defense got better. Their ball movement got better. They played well. That final was 5-point game against France, but they won each of the first 3 quarters. They were up 8 to 9 points, even with about a minute to go. This is one of those games where it wasn't a blowout, but really the score is closer than what it was. This game was never in danger for the USA. But despite them playing better, if they didn't have Kevin Durant, they might not have even made the gold medal game and not even won it. I mean, against Australia, I know you look at the final score, it looked like a blowout, but Australia was up 15 in the second quarter, and Kevin Durant completely carried USA in the second and third quarter. If he wasn't there, maybe they lose that game. Against France, he had 23 in the first half. If he didn't perform that way in the first half, maybe they lose that game also. So shout out to him. I think in the last 3 gold medal games, 30 points, 29 points. The last 3 Olympics, he's led the USA in points every Olympics, including 2012, which, by the way, had a team with the likes of LeBron James, I think Stephen Curry, and I think Kobe might have been on that team. I can't remember if Kobe did 2012 or not, but nonetheless, really, really good teams that he's played on for the Olympics. And no player ever has scored as many points as him for Olympic basketball. And I think Carmelo Anthony is the only other guy to win 3 golds. But again, Carmelo played in 4 Olympics. Durant only played in 3. Statistically speaking, I think he's the best player in Olympic basketball history. And I think he might even have the best game, because you look at, LeBron and Jordan, the other 2 probably best players to ever put on that USA jersey. They're not as good at shooting as Durant. They're not as good as threes. And that short 3-point line really, really helps him in the international game. So I'm okay with labeling him the best Olympic basketball player. But I think Michael Jordan is hands down the most important. And it's not even close. I think the 92 Dream Team sort of captured everyone's hearts. And Michael Jordan playing on that team changed everything, because there were reports that they weren't sure if Jordan was going to join that team. And as important as the rest of those other guys were, Michael Jordan was the draw. And he sort of made it popular for the biggest star to play on the Olympic team. I think guys like Magic and Larry, I mean, it was at the end of their career. Why not? They're never going to get a chance to do that. But if Jordan hadn't played on that 92 Dream Team, I don't know that basketball would have been as famous internationally. I don't know that the rest of the world would have caught up. And I don't know that the American basketball would have been viewed as important. The fact that Jordan has a gold medal, now these all-time greats like LeBron, Kobe, Dwayne Wade, Kevin Durant, hey, we won a medal too. Jordan won a medal. Let's go win a medal. Jordan won 2 medals, by the way. He also played on the 84 team back when he was in college. I think it was 84, one of those years. But I think Jordan is the most important player. But I do think that Durant is the best player if we're looking at accomplishments and just how the international game works.
Yeah, it's really interesting, just like how this whole kerfuffle has happened over USA Olympics men's basketball, in terms of, they lost a couple exhibition games. The sky was falling and everything. There were calls for guys like Dame Lillard and Kevin Durant saying, like, you guys are the best guys on this team. You need to step up. You need to lead. I mean, and what did they do? They stepped up and they delivered. We've kind of done this full circle of, everything's going wrong with Olympic basketball and in particular, some of its biggest stars, because nobody's looking at, say, JaVale McGee, who's now a gold medal winner as well, and saying he needs to be the one who's leading the team. And now here we are with Kevin Durant saying this guy could be the best to have ever have done it in the Olympics. And Common, you're exactly right about that shorter 3-point line. What is the most signature shot in Kevin Durant's arsenal? It's that just top of the key, I'm 6'11" and I'm just going to shoot it over you. I don't care who you are, and just nails it. That shot is money, just as much as, say, Kawhi Leonard from kind of, mid lane, that little bit of a jumper.
Jordan fadeaway.
Jordan fadeaway, the Dirk Nowitzki, leg kick out fadeaway jump shot. Like Kevin Durant, like that is his shot, is that, just a couple feet right inside that 3-point arc. Well, in the international game, that's worth 3 points. That's worth more playing in the group phase. So definitely hats off to the Olympic men's basketball team and bringing home gold as they were expected to do. I wish it weren't so exhaustive for them to do it, but that's more of our 24-hour news cycle that we have here, and the constant need to have things to talk about when it comes to, such a different style of event.
I'll say 2 real quick things, and then we'll get Drew's take on it. First off, Damian Lillard, turns out he was playing injured. A lot of people criticized his performances, including myself. So Damian Lillard, he played for his country. He played injured. I will say this about the team. I know obviously winning the gold is the most important thing, but I do think that USA Basketball has something, sort of a different aura about them. I know the world obviously is caught up, but when we look at the talent and the groups, certainly, obviously, in those exhibition games, they didn't have Drew Holiday, who actually was very quietly a really, really good Olympic performer. Chris Middleton, Devin Booker was a star in the Australia game. So I know they didn't have those guys, so I can sort of see what happened. But at the same time, though, it seems like USA has the most talent, and for them to lose 3 games in the span of 2 weeks. I know it didn't ultimately matter, but I would like to see them do a little bit better. I think they'll lose once in a while. They're human beings, but for them to lose that many times in such a short span, I still think that we did have sort of some right to criticize them. And I do think that that was my one question mark about Durant. Can he lead? I guess he didn't early on, but when it mattered, he did lead the team. That's just my only question mark about him, though. If we're talking about, just in general, like, does he make his teammates as good as Michael Jordan did, or especially LeBron James with this passing? Because Durant had a few decent passes, but a lot of what we saw him leading them was actually ISO ball, and he won on his pure talent. Did he necessarily make his teammates better? I'm not so sure.
Yeah, in the beginning, I don't think it was about leadership. I just think you had a group of guys who they hadn't played together. They also hadn't played the FIBA rules in years, and so they just got kind of outsmarted on the court with all the other teams having practiced together. Also, the USA roster wasn't even full at the time, so these guys were tired already from the NBA season. And, it was just a perfect storm for other teams to beat them because the other teams practiced together and they also knew the rules a whole lot more. You didn't see in the gold medal games anybody on the U.S. team really begging for calls because they're like, well, it's not going to happen. It's not the NBA.
Right. I'll add one other thing, though. It's just something that, and this probably isn't fair for me to say, but it's just a random thought that I had is if Michael Jordan is there or LeBron James is there, we're talking about prime Jordan, prime LeBron, and the USA is losing by, 7-8 points against Australia, France, or Nigeria. What do they say? And do they say, give me the ball, I'm going to go to the hoop and dunk it? Because that's the other thing. Those guys are better at going to the hoop and using their athleticism maybe than Durant compared to his shooting. That's my question mark. If a Michael Jordan is there, especially, do you think Michael Jordan is okay with an exhibition loss? Because I'm not sure that that's going to fly with Mr. MJ.
I mean, MJ's probably the most competitive human being in the world. So, yeah, of course that's not going to fly, but it doesn't mean that KD was just hanging out. I mean,
no, and I'm not saying that he was hanging out, but does he yell at his teammates and say hey, let's get this together? Do they maybe win a close exhibition game versus losing a close exhibition game? It's hard to say. That's why I really struggle with that question. And I do think sort of leadership does a little bit for that. And I think that 2008 team had such a strong leadership with Kobe and LeBron. And I know they had a better overall roster than this one, but that team had a sort of you felt like you weren't going to let the country down because of what happened in 2004. You weren't going to let those leaders down on that team. I just don't know that these guys felt as they weren't held as accountable as maybe they should be. But again, I don't know. It's hard to say. We'll never know that question. I can go with Durant being the best, or I can go with Jordan being the best. I'm fine with LeBron being the best. I mean, all three of them have done a lot for Olympic basketball. I just wonder if Jordan was on that team, do they lose those 2 exhibition games? Do they lose the opening group round game? My gut feeling says no, but it's hard to say for sure.
I mean, does it matter though? They won
gold.
No,
it doesn't matter.
I do think
that's kind of what it kind of comes down to. It's
doesn't matter.
It's like saying would they have lost a close preseason game if would Michael Jordan tolerate losing a preseason game? There's only you can only go so long stuck in top gear type of thing, and especially after just what the entire world has gone through. It's they lost a couple of games in exhibition. We found legitimate reasons to critique and criticize them, but ultimately they can't win 2 golds. They came together and got the ultimate prize at the end. So in this particular case, I don't think the journey matters as much as it normally would, simply because there are so many mitigating global factors and external factors to everything that went on. Having an NBA Finals that took out 1/4 of the roster basically until right before the Olympics started. basically it's like, yeah, I'm willing to like give a pass for everything that happened and not really question like mentality necessarily, because they showed up when it mattered and they won when it mattered. And really, that's all that they can really do. I mean, how much worth you say, hey, we're going to shut up haters or something like that? Like, I don't buy it.
That's what Draymond Green said. I'll say this real quickly on this final note. I don't know if I necessarily disagree with you, but I think it's a little bit different since it's USA basketball. They have this sort of aura about them. And, if you're a USA basketball player, a lot of times, like, the gold is a foregone conclusion, and you're essentially competing against the USA teams of the past and sort of the standing and the aura of the team. So anytime you lose, it sort of makes you look bad. But I can sort of also get what you're saying. I'll say this: the women's team, certainly, I guess they lost an exhibition game finally, but they cruised on their way to their 7th straight gold. So let's not forget about them. Diana Taurasi and Sue Bird have each won 5 gold medals. And just a thing that I saw in an interview with Diana Taurasi and the women's team, they have a sort of different mentality than the men's team. They don't underestimate any opponents. And USA women's basketball, and again, part of this is because the WNBA doesn't have the same draw as the NBA, but everyone wants to play on that ladies team. And that's the hardest team to make. They send all their best players. No one is resting for the WNBA season. I know that's a shorter season. It's a different league. You don't get paid as much. So I get why that happens. But I would sort of love to see more of the men's players play with that sort of pride for their country. One final note on JaVale McGee, since you brought him up. His mom won a gold medal for USA basketball. So a first mother-son duo to win gold. I don't know what her stats were, but I'm willing to bet that they were probably better than JaVale's. But nonetheless, congrats to JaVale McGee, the former Nugget, Drew's team, the Denver Nuggets.
Yeah, I mean, whenever JaVale was in the game, it was a buckle up kind of game, but clearly he's matured since then. So
yeah.
We'll move on. What are we moving on to? Let's see. We'll move on to the more of the Olympic best moments, best performances. What do you think, Common?
Yeah, I'm gonna hit on a few USA things before I get to the international stuff, because this could be an 8-minute segment. That's how much I love the Olympics. So the first thing that I thought of that was the most incredible thing from a sheer performance and record-breaking aspect is the 400-meter hurdles, both on the men's and women's side. I mean, this was truly epic and unprecedented. We had Karsten Warholm for Norway on the men's side, and then Rai Benjamin for USA getting second. And on the women's side, Sydney McLaughlin and Dalila Muhammad getting 1-2 for USA. All 4 runners broke the previous world record. Imagine going to the Olympics as a 400-meter hurdler, and they told you you're going to break the previous world record. You would say to yourself, that's awesome. I'm going to win a gold medal. I'm happy. Guess what? That world record that they broke, the second place runners, was not good enough. So that's crazy. And that race, I think, is going to grow popularity. And I look at the 2 runners, McLaughlin and Muhammad, for USA, just a phenomenal rivalry between them now. The 2 best ever at their sport by far. They've been sort of trading world records back and forth. It was really exciting. And how about them as a part of the 4x4 relay team on USA 400-meter relay? Talk about an all-star team. We had those 2 girls. Then we had Ating Mo, a 19-year-old who won the 800 meters. First USA women to do this in 53 years. And, of course, the best one of them all, Allison Felix, 35 years old, winning her 11th medal, became the most decorated USA track and field athlete of all time. Think about that for a second. I know some of these didn't compete in as many Olympics as she did. By the way, this was her 5th Olympics now. But think about that. Carl Lewis, Jesse Owens, Michael Johnson, Jackie Joyner-Kersee, like so many of these amazing U.S. track and field Olympians. None of them are better than Allison Felix. She won bronze in the 400 meters, and then she won the gold in the 4x4. Really, really humble, really good person. 35, just became a mother last season. Amazing to see what she did. USA Gymnastics was a big storyline, of course. Simone Biles dropping out after the first rotation in the team all around, focusing on her mental health. That got a lot of attention across the world, took a lot of courage to do that. I'll give a lot of credit to her teammates, though. They got silver without her, and it was the Biles show going into the Olympics, but it was truly a team effort. Jade Carey won a gold on floor exercise, Michaela Skinner a silver on vault, and Biles came back and won a bronze on the balance beam. And of course, Suni Lee winning the individual all around, the 5th straight Olympics. A USA girl or lady has won that event. Suni, of course, also likes pepperoni pizza like me. It's our favorite pizza flavor to go to. Oftentimes, when I do something successful, I say, I'm going to get me a pepperoni pizza to celebrate. Suni Lee and I are exactly like that. And oh my goodness, I have so many more moments. So I'm going to take a breath. I'll let you guys talk. Then I'll do like a round 2 and round 3 of Olympic moments.
Well, first off, pepperoni is a topping on a pizza, not a flavor. Like,
well, it's flavor, sort of. I don't know. Favorite flavor of pizza,
it is a
favorite topping. All right, well, whatever. Suni Lee and I both love our pepperoni.
That just, I don't know, that just tickled me for some reason. We had a new fastest man in the world with Lamont Marcel Jacobs beating Usain Bolt's record. We used to equate Usain Bolt with just pure speed.
Well, he didn't break his world record, though.
Was it just the Olympic record?
I'm not sure about the Olympic record. I think he's the first Italian to ever win the race. Maybe that's what you're thinking about. I know for a fact he didn't break the world record, because that world record is not getting touched anytime soon. That is one of the craziest world records. He set it in 08 Olympics, then broke it in 09. You can fact check that, but I'm 99.9% sure that Bolt still has the world record and probably Olympic record as well. Real quick shout out, by the way, we're talking about unbreakable Olympic records. How about a Bulgarian has the record for the women's high jump from the 80s? That record is still around. Think about that for a second.
Yeah, that's crazy.
What do you have, Drew, while Tom fact checks?
I'm not fact checking. He's doing the fact checks.
No,
yes.
yeah. What moment stood out to you?
Well, I was just impressed that USA actually won the medal tracker. They got first in all the medals. Well, at least they got first in the gold medals, which is the one that matters most, in my opinion. I mean, all the ESPN and everybody had the USA, and first the whole time with the overall leaders. Well, of course, I mean, you'd hope, because USA has the most representatives, right? So you better win the overall medal count. But winning the gold medal count was impressive, I thought, and they did it kind of not in overtime, but late in the fourth quarter, one would say, as they won by 1. So I was definitely impressed with that.
Yeah, I was tracking that like crazy. Every day I was refreshing, looking at the app, just like, oh my God, are they going to beat China? And you said it. They got it on the final night of the Olympics. Really the final few events outside of the men's, I think, water polo and the handball. This was the last events of the Olympics. USA wins. The volleyball gold is what clinched it for them. The first gold ever for the USA ladies volleyball team. They've been silver a few times. Really, they dominated Brazil. That was supposed to be a close match. USA straight sets, total domination. Also, the women's basketball team contributed to that. And there was a cyclist that actually got really an unprecedented win on that last night. Let me see where I have this written down. Jennifer Valente. She fell off her bike earlier in the event, but got right back up and got a gold for USA. It's the 7th straight Olympics. They have the most medals, and the 3rd straight Olympics, they have the most golds. Tom, what did you come up with the fact checks? Am I correct, indeed?
He's the fastest man in Europe, is the correction, not the world. So he is the best European time. So anybody who's not on this hemisphere of the world.
Well, I'll tell you this, though. If you look at the fastest times ever, they're the fastest 100-meter runners. I know this was sort of unprecedented, but it's, Jamaica and USA is number 2. So being the fastest in Europe, he might have had like the 7th fastest time ever. And, still very impressive, obviously. But I don't know that I would call it, the fastest in the world. Real quickly, since we're on that topic, I'll hit on a few of my international storylines, maybe before I go back to USA. At least I'll hit on one of them. was just in general the drama that they had for Italy. You had Lamont Jacobs, who we just talked about, winning the 100-meter freestyle, the world's fastest man today, at least. And then 10 minutes, that was actually 10 minutes after they had the high jump, which was Tamberi splitting a gold in the high jump for them. You had Barsham from Qatar and Tamberi from Italy got the exact same score. They asked them, do you guys want to do a jump off for the gold? The two of them are actually really, really close friends, which is not uncommon among elite competitors in those events. They see each other all over at the competitions. The two of them said, you know what, let's both get a gold. First shared gold since 1912. The two of them hugged, they embraced. It was a special moment. And then 10 minutes later, Jacobs crosses, goes through the finish line, and you see Tamberi hugging him with the Italian flag. Just a really, really big sports summer for Italy. Getting it done in the track and field, of course, got it done at the Euros for soccer. An exciting time to be an Italian, that is for sure.
Absolutely.
Anything
Italian
else stick
work.
out to you guys? I've got a few other things.
Go ahead.
All right, so let me go back to, I guess I'll go back to my USA first, then I'll get back to the world. So let's see. USA Water Polo won the championship game by the biggest margin ever. It's their third straight gold medal. Got to give them some credit as well. That was a cool storyline. And you talk about that gold medal race going down to one. What was one of the craziest wins for America was Gable Steveson winning a gold medal at the last second in wrestling. I don't know exactly how all the rules work, but I think he was down 9-5. He got 2 points with about 7 seconds left, didn't give up. And then at the last second, he got another 2 or 3 points takedown, I think it was, that he got. He won by like 1 at the buzzer when he was down 1. A dramatic gold for the USA. So keep that in mind when you're looking at the overall medal tally. That was very, very clutch for USA. Also, the USA ladies, by the way, won 58% of America's medals. They would have been top 5 in the world in medals if they were a country on their own. So the men did pretty good, but the women did even better. So congrats to the ladies on the dominance they had in the Olympics. Katie Ledecky was a big star. She lost the 400-meter final in one of the most dramatic races in Olympic history. Ariana Titmus chasing her down. Australia's coach going crazy. But guess what? Katie rebounded. She won the 800 and the 1500. I think that's now 6 individual golds, more than any USA swimmer, female swimmer. That is, of course, Michael Phelps is, superhuman. He almost doesn't count. Bobby Fink also won the 800 and 1500 meters, completing the sweep for America there. And Caleb Dressel, a lot of hype around him going into the Olympics. 5 golds for him, several world records there. And Lydia Jacoby winning the 100-meter breaststroke was incredible. The 17-year-old from Alaska, 1 swimming pool in the entire state that's Olympic size. I'm sure that's the one she used, and she used it quite well, pulling off the upset. April Ross winning the gold for beach volleyball was cool too. So really a successful Olympics for America. But outside of America, probably my favorite moment was the Bulgarian rhythmic gymnastics team winning the gold in the team competition. I am born in Bulgaria. As you guys know, I moved to the USA when I was 8, winning the green card visa lottery. So much hype in the Enchev family about the rhythmic gymnastics at the Olympics. My cousin, who normally doesn't talk that much, surprising that she's a Leo, she just went on. She sent me dozens upon dozens of Facebook messages. We were communicating, throughout the last 4 or 5 days of the Olympics, talking about predictions, who to watch, what to watch. At one point I had to resort to typing everything in English because I tried typing in Bulgarian, but it just got too hard. So I was reading her stuff in Bulgarian. I was typing in English. My mom and I were watching it together. And Russia had won gold medal every Olympics since 2000 in rhythmic gymnastics. Going into the competition, they were minus 1,200 favorites. So if you invested $10, you would have won $10.83. This is one of the most wildest lines I've ever seen. I mean, Russia was such a heavy favorite, and Bulgaria beat them. They beat them. Bulgaria won the gold in rhythmic gymnastics. Also, how about Bulgaria? 6 golds or 6 medals, 5 of them coming in the last like 3 or 4 days of the Olympics. So Bulgaria really put on a late charge there. So that was cool for me. Just a few other storylines around the world. Tunisian Ahmed Hefnawi, he qualified 8 out of 8 in the 400-meter freestyle. The 18-year-old, and guess what? He was the last qualifier in the final. It didn't matter. He won in lane 8. Just an unbelievable finish. I don't know if you guys saw the video of his family going crazy online. It was really, really neat. Australian swimmer Emma McKeon. I almost missed this, but I just noticed that she had 7 medals. That's the most of any female swimmer ever. 4 golds and 3 bronzes for her. We talked about the high jump, the 2 guys sharing it. We talked about Lamont Jacobs. Shout out to the host nation, Japan, getting the most golds it ever has. Really big for them to win gold in baseball. I know as Americans, it was tough to see America lose, but that means a lot to Japan to get that. And Daiki Hashimoto, Mom and I were watching the men's individual all around on replay. One of the wildest gymnastics finishes ever. Going into the final round, there was still like 4 guys that can win a gold medal. He, I think, was like 3rd going into the final rotation, 2nd or 3rd. Delivers a phenomenal, flawless routine on the bars, winning the all-around. And then I think, Tom, you talked about this last week maybe, but Dutch runner Sifan Hassan fell in the 1,500 meters in her heat, got up, chased down 11 runners, and got first. Went on to win bronze later in the Olympics. That wouldn't have happened had she given up. And then 14-year-old Chinese diver Tuan Hongchen gets 2 perfect 10s. She'd never dived in a professional competition before. She was too young to be in the last Olympics. But, you know, the country had seen her dominate locally. They put her in, and she had the greatest performance ever. Also, 62-year-old Australian Andrew Hoy wins the bronze in equestrian. How about that? A 62-year-old medalist. And then finally, how about this? 93 countries winning a medal at these Olympics. We've never had more countries win a medal. Many of them were first-time medalists. None more impressive than San Marino. 34,000 people. They'd never medaled in the Olympics before. They sent 5 athletes to the Olympics. 3 of them got medals. So they got 3/5, the best medal to athlete ratio, and they essentially got like 1 medal per 11,000 people. So how about that for San Marino? A phenomenal Olympics. Really glad it happened. A lot of question marks. Would it happen? Different, you know, behind closed doors. Also, Tom Daley, the British diver, got his first gold after years of trying. And one of the cool things was him knitting in the stands. I really enjoyed watching him knit. I don't know if he's as good as my great aunt Baba Yana, but certainly them two can have a competition in that. So really cool Olympics, really cool storylines, inspirational to see the world come together, all the friendships, something that I think we needed to see. I think it was handled well. It was played without fans. A lot of countries were not allowed to bring their families. I think they did what they can to reduce COVID. Very few instances of athletes dropping out because of COVID. That did happen, I think, to one of the USA track and field athletes, but overall, an absolute success. Thank you, Tokyo 2020, 2021 Olympics.
Wow, there you go. That was quite the monologue there for the last 15 minutes.
There's a lot to say. There's a lot to say.
Oh, sure. Sure, Castleman, you got anything else on the Olympics, or should we move on? We move on. What have we got next? Locks of the week? Comment?
Locks of the week,
you,
my friend. Yeah.
Recap. Not a great week last week for the show.
No. We've had a rough patch lately, but we're actually slightly improving compared to the past week. I think we all went 1-2 this week. I got my win. Well, the one I picked was Bulgaria to get a medal. And not only did they get a medal, they get a gold medal in rhythmic gymnastics. I think then I missed Australian women covering 15.5 against the USA women's basketball team. They lost by 24. And then I had Sweden over Canada in the Olympic gold medal final in regulation over 90 minutes. Sweden leading about 60 minutes in. Canada gets a late goal and a penalty kick, and Canada wins in the extra time shootout. A lot of drama, just one of many upsets. By the way, we talked about the Olympics, a lot of upsets. Novak Djokovic didn't even medal in the Olympics. He's won everything in tennis. And you had Canada beating USA and Sweden, who were, really good teams, favored to win that medal. So a lot of craziness in the Olympics, by the way. That's the other story. Tons of upsets. Speaking of upsets, Tom was 1-2. He had the Brewers -1.5 over the Pirates. Massive upset. The Pirates winning 8-5 in that game. And then Angels over Rangers. He got that one 11-3. Giants -1.5 over the Diamondbacks. Another upset. The Diamondbacks winning 3-1. So Tom essentially went with two division leaders against two teams in the cellar. Covering a 2-run line. Maybe, on paper you should have won those, but for sure the Pirates and Giants winning outright, or rather Diamondbacks, was crazy. So the upsets keep coming everywhere. Drew was 1-2. He had Italy plus 0.5 over Serbia in water polo. Serbia winning 10-6. Women's water polo, he had Canada plus 2.5 against Australia. Canada losing by 2, barely got that one. And he had Cowboys plus 1.5 versus the Steelers in NFL preseason. The Steelers winning 16-3. So I'm in first place by half a game on the season over Tom. Drew's somewhere in the back. But it'll be interesting here with Locks of the Week today, because I've got, an all baseball card, but I'll let Drew start first.
Sure. Yeah, I've got a baseball game tonight. Marlins plus 1.5 over the Padres. I think it's like -110, something like that, since the Padres are such heavy favorites. And then we'll go to soccer. I don't even know what it is, but I don't know. It's teams I recognize, so we'll do it. Arsenal versus Brentford under 2.5. I don't know if it's a friendly or if it's
what
real
day is
league.
it?
It's Saturday.
Yeah, that's the opening weekend of Premier League. So that's the first game of the season.
Oh, well, there you go. I go back to the EPL well. So, yeah, Brentford versus Arsenal under 2.5, and then PSG against Racing Strasbourg under 3.5 in that contest with Messi.
Yeah. Oh, we'll have more on that coming up, man. Whew. Let me calm down.
Start priming that engine.
Better towel off beforehand.
Yeah, I'll probably sweat. I'll probably sweating up a storm. Don't worry, I've got my towel here on the floor. It's ready to go. Tom, what do you have?
Got our very own John Thompson in house here.
Yes.
I'm going to go with an all baseball card.
Hold on.
There you go. There you go.
We're ready.
I'm going with an all baseball card this week. 2 games tonight. I'm going to have the Milwaukee Brewers covering 1.5 against the Who Are Those Cubs at -130. Freddie Peralta, a fantastic pitcher, and Alec Mills, while decent for the Cubs, I don't think they have a strong enough lineup. Give me the White Sox covering a 1.5 in Minnesota at -135. Giolito on the mound, and somebody by the name of Bo Burrows, somewhere with a 12 ERA, something like that.
11.
I'm going to go with the White Sox on the road. And then tomorrow, I'll go for some bad baseball in the early evening. Give me the Tigers over the Orioles on the money line in the first 5 innings. So Tigers win the first 5 innings at -125. I don't trust either rebuilding team's bullpen at this point, but I like Casey Mize more than I like, what is his name? Something Aiken. Keegan Aiken, the 5th starter for the Orioles. I'll take the Tigers in the first 5 on the money line.
Tom, we have 2 of the same picks this week.
Seriously?
2. So I don't know if that's good or bad, because we've had mixed. I feel like we've been about 500 on same picks. I think we started off bad, then we were doing good, then we reverted to bad. But yeah, we have 2 of the same picks, and I actually had a feeling that you would have at least one of them, and that is the White Sox one. As soon as I saw the White Sox line, I'm like, well, Tom's probably going to have this on Locks of the Week. So you got it at -130. You go off Bovada. I go off DraftKings. I had it at -125 on DraftKings.
Oh, okay.
So a little bit better payoff on DraftKings, unless that's changed in the last hour before the show started. But Yeah, you said it. Lucas Giolito going on the mound. He's 2-0 against the Twins this year. In 14 innings, he's allowed just 4 runs against them. They have a hard time hitting him. Beau Burrows, who you mentioned, he's the reliever getting the start for the Twins. He's one of those short relievers that we see that go a couple innings and it just doesn't work well. He's allowed 11 runs in 9 innings this season. The White Sox are 12-4 against the Twins, including 4-2 on the road. Of those 12 wins, 10 are by more than 1 run. So 10 out of 16 times those two have played, the Sox have won by more than 2. So I like my odds on the team that's 20 games over 500 against a team that's 16 games under 500. Keep this in mind. The White Sox improved at the trade deadline. They got Jimenez back, who was belting all sorts of home runs and doubles and singles against the Cubs last night. Meanwhile, the Twins lost their top hitter in Nelson Cruz, probably their top pitcher in Jose Berrios. The Sox coming off a 3-game sweep at the Cubs, where they became the first team in the modern era to strike out 45-plus batters and hit 8-plus home runs in a 3-game series. So that shows you that they're rolling all over the field. So I like the White Sox to win by 2 or more. Speaking of the Cubs, well, they're basically a minor league lineup these days with Wilson Contreras. That's how bad they are after the mass exodus, getting rid of Bryant, Rizzo, and Baez. They also got rid of their good relief pitchers. So I look for the first place Brewers to beat the Cubs by 2 or more. So Milwaukee minus 1.5. That's also at minus 125. Keep this in mind. Freddie Peralta, the Brewers pitcher, is 8-3 with a 2.21 ERA this season. Also a 2.51 road ERA this season. By the way, he's pitched against the Cubs 4 times this season. The Brewers won all 4 of those meetings, and that's back when the Cubs actually had hitters. And 3 of those 4 wins were by 2 or more. The Brewers also a better road team than a home team. So look for them to enjoy that at Wrigley Field. 5 straight wins for Milwaukee over the Cubs should make it 6. They'll win by 2 or more. They might win by 3 or 4 or more. If you want to look at those alternate lines, I mean, the Cubs probably not going to have a very good night at Wrigley Field. And then finally, I've got the Yankees minus 1.5 at the Royals. That's at minus 120. New York is 8-2 in its last 10 games. They just had a 5-game winning streak snapped on Sunday. The Royals, meanwhile, trending downwards. They've lost 6 of their last 9. Yankee starter Jameson Taillon had a 1.16 ERA in July and allowed just 2 earned runs in 6 1/3 innings in his only August start. So he's been pitching great. Look for him to deliver a gem. Look for the Yankees lineup to hit some home runs, to score some runs. So give me tonight, give me the Yankees by 2 or more against the Royals. Give me the Brewers by 2 or more against the Cubs, and the White Sox by 2 or more against the Twins. That White Sox and Brewers ones, I think, are borderline mortgage bets. Might as well throw your mortgage out there.
Now we're done. Now we're done. Now you've sealed it. We've had the whole trend lines of like when you and I are like, we both like seem to like ride highs and lows together, and then like you throw in the mortgage, like you're like dooming us to an 0-3 week. Meanwhile, Drew's gonna go. His EPL well is going to be overflowing with unders and everything. So that's how I think this is going to go. Pessimist that I am.
Yeah, don't be a pessimist. I think those lines. I mean, for sure, when you look at the statistics, they should hit. But it's sports, it's baseball. You never know. But I've learned this year, especially since they traded away everyone, don't trust the Cubs. And do trust the White Sox, who beat up on the AL Central. It's like in the AL Central, they're a whole different team when they play the AL Central. So, yeah, I like their chances. I'll say this, though, about locks of the week. I expect Drew Brackett to sort of get back on fire because the English Premier League is back. And his under totals on English Premier League, his record is through the roof. And he almost like sort of got arrogant and tried to translate it to other soccers. Like the Euros, he was horrendous. His little trial runs of the Korean and Japanese leagues did not go so well. But now that the English Premier League is back, I think Drew Brackett is back with a bang. I mean, I know if he does 3 of them, it's too much, but you might want to consider doing 2 English Premier unders, Drew, because you're on fire with those.
Oh, then we got the NFL back as well. So,
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Just fade the Chiefs. That's always the goal.
A bonus pick. I forgot this. I had this in my head and I meant to write it down and I forgot because I was tired and I took a nap this afternoon. Bonus pick NFL preseason. I like the Bears minus 3.5 against the Dolphins on Saturday. You've got 2 quarterbacks for the Bears fighting for a starting job. Both are going to want to prove themselves. And Nick Foles might be the best third-string quarterback that I've ever seen. So he's going to do pretty good against those third-stringers too. So I like Chicago going 3-0 since they only played 3 preseason games right now. 3-0 in the preseason, getting a nice blowout win over the Dolphins on Saturday. Since if you want to go down that NFL preseason betting well, that's the one I would advise.
Good luck with that.
Yeah. All right.
I went down the well too. So
yeah, it didn't work for you. Statement of the week time. I've actually got 2 things, but one of them I have a good feeling that one of you is going to have this. So I'll let you guys go first because there's a good chance that you might have one of the things I'm mentioning. The other one is messy. So, you guys won't have that. But why don't you start first, Tom? Because you might have what I'm about to say.
I don't know. I'm going to go back a little bit to the early days of the NBA's allowed tampering session. And the NBA has actually opened up an investigation into 2 franchises, the Miami Heat and the Chicago Bulls, for tampering violations. I got to say, on the one hand, everybody knows that everybody tampers in the NBA as far as talking to potential free agents and other available players when it's not allowed. But as an executive for the Chicago Bulls, you have to wait more than 55 seconds to announce a sign and trade with the Pelicans to acquire Lonzo Ball. Now, the NBA has allowed that contract, that transaction to go through. They did have it within their options if they felt it necessary or felt it right to void that deal, basically just leaving Lonzo Ball as a restricted free agent. So at the very least, they've let it go through, but that does not mean that if they do their investigations and find that there has been some sort of illegal contact early, that they can fine the Bulls, they can make the Bulls forfeit draft picks. On the whole, I find this to be ridiculous that we even have, this legalized tampering period. But at the same time, those are the rules, and you have 4 days to talk to people. What's the rush? You don't have to hit send on that right when it hits the very first second that it can. Just hey, New Orleans, just chill on this for 10 minutes. Just 10 minutes. We don't have to be first. This isn't the YouTube comment section. We can take our time a little bit with this, even if we agree in principle before we're allowed to even talk in principle. So basically, it's just I think the rules are a little bit ridiculous, but also it's ridiculous to not follow the rules. You can do this. It's not that hard.
I trust you, Tom Castleman. I trust you. I'm referencing your shirt. What does that shirt say? I've been wondering the whole show.
Oh, it says, "Trust me, I'm a superhero." It's got Iron Man and Thor and Cap Bam. Basically, 2 of my 3 favorite, or two of my favorite Avengers.
Who's your favorite Avenger?
It's a close one between Thor and Iron Man. It alternates back and forth.
Wow, we're sort of on the same page. Iron Man.
I was Team Tony in Civil War. I was definitely Team Tony.
Yeah, Tony Stark and Iron Man's my favorite Avenger also. Drew Brackett probably hasn't even seen the Avengers.
I don't believe I have.
Figures. Hasn't seen Star Wars, hasn't seen the Avengers. He's only seen Harry Potter because of reruns during the holiday season. But yeah, as far as the tampering stuff, Tom, I agree with you. It's nothing different to say. It is what it is. I think we all know that it goes on, a lot of times when it's unreported, but I agree with you. Drew, what do you have for statement of the week or salute or whatever it is you're going to do? You might have what I have then, actually.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure we do. Salute to Bobby Bowden, who passed away the other day. 377 career wins. That's second behind Joe Paterno. He also had a In the bowls, he led his teams to 27 consecutive bowl games. So well done on him. He was a great state. I remember, of course, at Florida State. It was always fun watching the Noles, and he was just a very, very good personality. Yes.
Yeah.
And then my other one is congrats to Luka Doncic, who just agreed to a 5-year, $207 million deal with the Mavericks.
Did that just happen? Because I saw something on ESPN about it, and like, when did it just break? Because they were talking about it.
Yes.
Just broke.
Breaking news. I think he's worth every penny, by the way.
Oh, absolutely.
That transitions well into my messy one, but I'm going to give another one because I'm surprised you guys didn't have this. I actually had a feeling that you were going to do two of them, Drew, and I thought Bobby Bowden was going to be one of them. And then I thought Tom might have this or you might have this. But salute and congratulations to our alma mater, the University of Missouri, on hiring a new athletic director. It's female Desiree Reed-Francois, the second female athletic director in SEC history. Whoa, boy. Hold on.
Earthquake in Chicago. Castleman, did you feel that one? He felt it. Hopefully there's nobody outside your window for this podcast.
All right, hold on a second.
We all remember that one when there were critters and gremlins outside the Castleman household.
Oh, my God. I don't know what just happened. That was crazy.
Common got so excited to talk about Messi that he was winding up with whatever he's about to talk about. The Mizzou, new Mizzou AD, and he just got too excited and everything's everywhere.
Oh my God!
It's funny. You're still on the air though. You're plugged in with the microphone. You didn't lose connection. That's pretty impressive as far as broadcast spills go.
Yes. So what basically just happened is my light went down. It took a fall. It took a tumble, and then my mic almost tumbled. So I've got a light here set up behind the camera because otherwise my room is too dark. So excuse you for that. Surprisingly, that's the first time that's ever happened in show history. I feel like there's been so many weeks where that light's about to fall down, but it simply hasn't. But nonetheless,
probably held on by duct tape.
Yeah, well, not this week. I've had it.
Probably like your computer screen too.
No, my computer screen is in much better condition than it was in college. Drew is referencing, of course, when literally my MacBook was held together by duct tape back in our college days. Tom has seen that in our Salute Your Sports College Radio Day. Sitting there in the radio station and my computer is like practically dead. But on a more serious note, back to the Mizzou news. Mizzou making Desiree Reed-Francois their new athletic director, the second female athletic director in SEC history. The first in a public school. Vanderbilt is the other one with Candace Lee, that being a private school. So congratulations to her. This is could be a trend-setting, record-breaking, groundbreaking barrier that we see. It'll be interesting to see how she does. She certainly has a good resume. 4 years as athletic director at UNLV, where the school had records for GPA for athletes, record for ticket sales for football. And it's the first time the school had a nutritionist and a psychologist. So good for her there. She does have previous experience in the SEC, 4 years as the deputy athletic director at Tennessee, where, how about this? She helped hire Konzo Martin, Mizzou's basketball coach now. So she has some sort of relationship with him. The interesting thing is, how is she going to do with the issues that Mizzou has? She inherits budget deficits with Mizzou athletics. Much of the communications staff, the assistant athletic directors, and the athletic director all stepping down here in the last few months. I covered that team. I have a relationship with certain people. Was I still reporting on that team, I would have probably found out what happened. Didn't want to bother anyone, but really kind of sudden and unprecedented to see all that happen. So something is going on behind the scenes there. So obviously going up against top competition in the SEC is going to be tough, but I hope she does well for our alma mater, and it would mean a lot for women in sports if she does well. Anything that you guys want to add about that?
That's a great hire for sure. Yeah, it's a great hire.
Okay. Well, I'm trying to make my light even better for the messy chat. Here we go. We are ready for the messy chat. All right. Let me get my drink of water here. Hold on.
Yeah, see you in about 10 minutes.
I'm putting my feet up.
Let me towel off here. All right, we're towel off, not sweating from this light. All right, here we go. I have a lot of notes written down, but I'm going to speak from my heart because what's the point of looking at my notes? I know this situation inside and out. So the big story in the world, quite frankly, this is probably the biggest story in the world, not only in sports, but the world as a whole. Bigger than the Olympics, which is saying something. Lionel Messi, my favorite soccer player of all time, there he is. I bought an Argentina poster, replaced the old Barcelona poster about 2 weeks ago. Perfect timing because that Barcelona poster is not worth anything these days. Big talk. Lionel Messi's contract was running out. Barcelona and Messi agreed to a new contract deal. Everyone said the deal was done. Messi was going to Barcelona to sign the deal, and Messi was going to be a Barcelona player for the next 5 years, possibly the rest of his career. Everything was set. Everyone was going to be happy, including me. And then everything got messed up. Just an absolute disaster for Barcelona. Turns out that they were above their wage bill. They couldn't register Messi. They didn't have enough money to sign him. And what happened actually is that some people say that Messi should play for free. Well, the rule in La Liga is that as a player, you cannot take more than a 50% pay cut the following season. So Messi was willing to take a 50% pay cut. I know his salary is outrageous. I know it's the highest in the world. That's because he's the best. But he was willing to do everything he can to come back to the team. The team was not able to pay that. They're so far above their wage bill that they actually are like 10% above the wage bill, even if they don't sign Messi. So he would have to basically take like a 95% pay cut for them to even have a chance to make it happen. How this happens is beyond me. I've read articles, the past two presidents, a lot of corruption, a lot of lies, a lot of money mismanagement, overpaying their players, overpaying money for their stadiums. I got to send you an article, Tom, about the president 2 years before this president. And you'd be interested in just the economics and the corruption and the mismanagement that they did based on contract Castle. And it's just really mind-boggling how a team that has so much to sell, the most popular team online in social media, the greatest player of all time, they have such a high product, and how they are so in deficit is crazy. The pandemic really hurt them greatly. What do you got, Drew?
So wait, you said they didn't have enough money to pay him? Is that because of a salary cap? Because you understand they're worth $4.76 billion. That's fourth highest valuable team in the world.
Yes, and that's what's
crazy.
Understand. The value that they have, they've lost like a record 400 million euros this last season. Despite all that money that they're worth, they're in debt because they're paying everyone money. They paid a ridiculous amount of money for the stadium, and the revenue they bring in, you can't go above the revenue that you bring in. So they're bringing in a lot of money, but they're also spending a lot of money. So there's a certain wage bill that doesn't allow you to go above that. So they don't have enough money to pay him. And he wanted to take a 50% pay cut, and they still didn't have enough money to pay him. It's just really, really sad. And they say that only 10% of their losses are due to COVID. So they were such a mess even before COVID happened. It's just really, really sad. And actually there's reports, and these I'm not 100% sure on, but there are reports that the La Liga offered them to take a loan, which the loan would have taken 10% of Barcelona's TV rights, and the loan would have said they could never join the Super League again. And our president, who inherited this mess, he's not the one who made the mess. It's a new president. He's the president when they won 6 trophies in 2009, but he apparently had no interest in taking this loan because he's probably holding on hope for the Super League so he could save all his problems. But I don't think you mortgage your best superstar. Messi brings in so much money that, he could have made up that 10%. They're saying that they're essentially going to lose 10% of their money just by him leaving. I know that deal is for years on ahead, but it's about establishing momentum. You had the best team of all time 10 years ago. 5 years ago, you had the best team in the world. That you can't sign your superstar who actually wants to come back is a massive problem for them. And the press conference was just so heartbreaking. You can tell he cried multiple times during the press conference. His teammates were crying. His family was crying. He wanted to come back so bad to his team. His family is in Barcelona. They built a life here. He's been there since he was 13. He's now 34. That's 21 years at the club. He's won 35 titles for them. Just a really messy, crazy situation. A lot of fans gathering all over the stadium. Rumors are now that he's going to PSG. Rumors are that the French president is going to greet him there. They're going to reserve the Eiffel Tower for a big presentation. And it's crazy because PSG took Neymar from Barcelona. Now they'll take Messi. And it's like PSG is like downfalling Barcelona. And it's all of it is a mess. But PSG seems to be one of the only teams that can pull this off. I don't know what to say. I'm a Messi and Barcelona fan, both. I was on the verge of tears yesterday watching this press conference. I am a bigger Messi fan than Barcelona, though. I was always a Barcelona fan because the best Bulgarian player ever played there, Hristo Stoichkov. But now Messi transformed everything for me, and he's bigger than the club. He's more important than the club. He really is. I think he's the only athlete that I can say that about, truly. And you see it, all the attention and the love he's getting everywhere. He's going to go to PSG. They're going to win everything. And Barcelona, I'm afraid, could become the next AC Milan or Manchester United, a top team that all of a sudden is no longer one of the top 5 teams in the world. It's going to be rough in Barcelona. It's going to be rough for me, but I guess I'll be watching PSG now. Or whoever he goes to. He may go somewhere else. This saga is crazy. It may not be over. Who knows at this point?
Could he end up in Juventus by chance?
I hope not. I don't want him playing with Ronaldo. We don't want to associate with that guy.
But you'd have the best player of all time teaming up with Lionel Messi, Kamo. How would you not want that?
The best player of all time is Lionel Messi. Ronaldo is so far behind him, way behind in assists and dribbles. I know you're just trying to get a reaction out of me, but that would be one that a lot of people would enjoy, but I don't think he's going there for sure. So I don't know. I mean, it's just heartbreaking. I'm just saying it's a good thing that I got a Argentina poster instead of a Barcelona poster now. It's just sad because if you think about it, it's the superstar that wanted to come back. Everyone wanted him back, and the team was not able to pull it off. I know they tried to unload some players that didn't want to leave, but honestly, if you're getting overpaid for what you do, are you going to want to break your contract and leave and go to a different team? And, they may pay you less, or, you're no longer on like the best, one of the big name clubs. I don't know. You can blame the guys, but at the same time, if they have a contract, it's not their job to take a pay cut or leave, because they basically wanted their entire team to take pay cuts. They wanted to offload a lot of their players, and they had very little success with it. And a lot of Barcelona fans are mad at the players for not taking pay cuts or not leaving. And that's actually not fair to the players. They're their own people, and it just, it's all a mess. And it was very weird and suspicious because like everything was agreed upon, and at the last minute it didn't work out. So it makes me question, like, what did the president really know? What were the negotiations? It seemed like he thought that La Liga was going to bail them out and change the law for them at the last second. And he gambled and lost. And yeah, losing is what Barcelona is going to be doing a lot more these days compared to what they used to do. So heartbreaking stuff for me. But I guess that's sports sometimes. As a sports fan, it truly is a matter of ups and downs. For Messi, it's crazy because he just finally won an international trophy with Argentina, one of, if not the happiest moments of his life, living it up on vacation. He gets back to sign this contract that he thinks is over, and now this. So I don't know. It's crazy. This has been a crazy year in sports. We've seen nothing like this across the world in sports. And there's been a lot of good, a lot of bad, but just a lot of craziness. And I'm hoping we get to have some normalcy here as we approach the NFL season and the college football season.
Well, I have a quick question, if you'll
Sure.
humor me on Leo Messi. So my understanding is like there's a limit to how much of a pay cut to stay with a team. But if he wanted to, could he have just been like, I'm going to sign a 1 year contract with somebody for like whatever peanuts, throw out a number, and then the following year then return to Barcelona, basically just like take a year off, or like is that something that even could have been done?
Yeah, I think he in theory could leave, and it's like that's so. By the way, that's a La Liga rule. I'll be completely honest with you. I'm not sure how the different leagues do it. So that's a rule that the Spanish league itself has. So in theory, he could go 1 year, go somewhere else, and then come back to Barcelona. And he's signing what the rumors are a 2 year deal with PSG, an option for a third. It is possible he goes to PSG, then he comes back for one more year at Barcelona. I don't know. But that's what,
Okay.
from what I have read online in La Liga, the rule is it's to sort of create like too much of not a unfair advantage. If like a
Hmm.
really rich player wants to go on a really good team and they want to like pay him nothing peanuts, they just want to make it fair. So that's the rule. But I think what you're saying he could do, I think he could go to another team and come back, and that rule may not be applicable in other leagues. I mean, they've all got some sort of like wage bills and financial fair play. That's the other issue. Like PSG has a lot of like question marks, like can they afford Messi? Because they've just gotten a ton of players themselves. And the other issue is if they do get Messi, they may have to give up Mbappe, who's their young star, and Mbappe might go to Real Madrid, Barcelona's rival. So this whole Messi situation leaving could really unravel at Barcelona because you can essentially have one of the top, arguably best player in the world leave your team and arguably a top five best player in the world join your rival. It could get really really ugly. And now they've got guys who don't want to play anymore. Another guy's injured. It's just and the fans are abusing the players who they thought should have left because they're getting paid too much. It's just all of it is just an absolute mess right now. So hoping for better times. I'll say this: if Barcelona plays PSG, and if Messi does go on PSG, I'm cheering for Messi to score 4 goals against them and Messi to beat Barcelona. Barcelona's number 2. Messi's always number 1 in my heart. But I think
There
that's
you
about
go.
it. Anything
Yeah.
else you guys want to add? All right. Well, we won't have that many Olympic and soccer rants in weeks to come. We'll have more traditional short football chat. So we'll have a lot more football in the coming weeks. College football top 25 rankings are going to be out next Monday, I read online. So we'll talk about that on the next show as Tom and I are going to go watch some Chicago baseball, cheering on the White Sox, cheering against the Cubs, which is, I guess, kind of hard for me to do, but I'll do it anyways since it's a win-win. Have a great night, everyone.